What's the first thing you think about when you think of book burnings? Nazi Germany? That's not surprising. This book burning went down in history as a symbol of censorship and intolerance. In 1933, the Nazis burnt books that didn't match their ideology. As a result, many people have a critical view of book burnings, but not everyone. Now, book burnings in Europe are making headlines again, and not just any books either. It's mostly been the Quran. The reactions to the Quran burnings have been intense. Protesters stormed the Swedish embassy in Iraq, and the terrorist organization Qaida is calling for attacks. In this video, I'll explain what all this means and which role this Danish-Swedish man plays in the whole controversy. But let's start at the beginning. The situation in Sweden has massively escalated in the past few months. The Quran has been burned and desecrated in front of mosques and embassies there. This has led to criticism from within Sweden and sparked protests in countries where the Muslim faith is prominent. Sweden's Prime Minister has said it's the most serious security situation since World War II. Because the situation in Sweden has escalated so much, the UN's Human Rights Council condemned the Quran burnings in July. At the same time, they insisted that freedom of expression should not be limited in the process. That leads us right to the heart of the debate. I was especially interested in what people in Sweden think about the situation. Are Quran burnings considered freedom of expression?
I don't think it's a expression of freedom of speech. If you were burning the Bible, will it be a freedom of speech? You would probably say no.
We have the right to do whatever we want, and I don't think it's going to the part where you're threatening people and stuff like that. When you do that, it's problematic, but when you're burning a book, it's just a statement.
Yes, I think it's just a way of people expressing something they feel about the subject, and even though they can be hateful.
No, I think it's they need to have respect for other religions.
For many people, Quran burnings are a no-go, while others aren't so certain. In order to understand why there have been so many Quran burnings in Sweden, we actually have to look at Denmark, and at one person in particular, Rasmus Paludan. He's a Danish-Swedish lawyer and far-right politician who has taken full advantage of the fact that Sweden scrapped its blasphemy law in 2017. In 2019, just 2 years later, Paludan burned a Quran in public for the first time. When the blasphemy law was abolished, Quran burnings became legal. We spoke with Lena Kuhler. She's a professor in sociology of religion in Denmark who is very familiar with the case of Paludan.
Rasmus Paludan started burning the Qurans in Denmark when he was running for parliament. But as he is a Swedish citizen as well, he could also run for parliament in Sweden, and he did so. So when he got fed up with burning the Qurans in Denmark, he moved to Sweden.
What Lena means when she says Paludan has had enough of the Quran burnings in Denmark is that he simply hasn't got enough attention for his actions. While he continued doing the same in Sweden, it was his far-right supporters who kept burning Qurans in Denmark. In Sweden, his actions caused more of an uproar. At the beginning of 2023, his Quran burnings in front of the Turkish embassy sparked a diplomatic battle between Turkey and Sweden. In the meantime, in addition to Paludan, there are other right-wing figures whose actions caused Muslims from around the world to view Sweden with disgust, and even provoked terrorist organizations like Qaida to threaten retaliation. It's important to mention that there are also people with different views who blaspheme against the Quran, but those are mostly just individual cases. The Quran burners often have right-wing ideologies and want to protest against migration or demonize the Muslim community. But why is someone like Rasmus Paludan so successful in Sweden and Denmark in particular?
I think that in Denmark and Sweden, the fact that these countries are quite secular countries means that the general population perhaps have difficulty in understanding how religious Muslims think about the Quran. There is a tendency to consider mainstream religious Muslims as radicals, even if they are from international standards are just mainstream.
According to Lena, people in Denmark and Sweden are particularly critical of religion. But let's come back to the Quran burning debate. What do Muslims think? Denmark's biggest Muslim interest group wrote to us and said they fear Islamophobia is becoming normalized. That's why they're demanding a ban on the Quran burnings. In general, the protests in Denmark, as well as Sweden, have been overwhelmingly peaceful. Mohammed Faisal Shami, a professor of Islamic theology and philosophy in Sweden, has observed this as well. For him, it's about more than the Quran burnings.
The problem is how the politicians, the publicists, and also cultural representatives have defended the Quran burnings in the name of freedom of speech will deepen the polarization in the Swedish society between the Muslim minority and the ethnic Swedes, because Muslims understand this that it's okay to bully Muslim in Sweden.
Should burning the Quran be banned? My colleague asked young people on the streets of Sweden and Denmark.
I think so, because there's also a lot of other things that are banned, and that's also due to respect for other people.
No. I think it should be allowed.
I think it would be the easy way out to just put it under the rug, put attention to it. Why are people expressing themselves this way? And I think these opinions, when they are more clandestine, they become even more dangerous.
I would say so, yeah, because it is, I think it is a part of a kind of suppression of religion. Because in Denmark we also have freedom of religion.
Yeah, because you can talk that you don't believe in Quran, but you cannot disrespect it by burning it.
Young Danish and Swedish people seem to be in favor of a ban on the burnings. And studies reflect this, showing that a slender majority is in favor of a ban. The Danish and Swedish governments have addressed the issue. Both nations have condemned the Quran burnings, but at the same time, they want to limit freedom of expression as little as possible. The Danish government is currently considering a ban on Quran burnings, but the country intends to avoid reintroducing blasphemy laws. At the moment, there is no plan for a ban in Sweden, and the governments of both countries are currently on their summer break. It's clear that the international pressure on both countries is enormous. In July, for example, politicians in Yemen and Iran called for a boycott on Swedish products. And we've already mentioned the increased threat from terrorists. Nevertheless, Lena and Mohammed told us it's important that something changes within the country. Namely, that people who regard freedom of expression as sacred and those who consider the Quran holy need to find some common ground. What do you think? Should burning the Quran be banned? Tell us in the comments.